what I'm really interested in addition to the history of Chinese restaurants, is the experience of the people who lived in them and worked in them. And so that slide before was about a documentary. It's actually 5 DVDs done by a Chinese Canadian who went to 15 different countries in search of Chinese restaurants, and he filmed them and interviewed them and so forth. So next slide. The quote that he has in the preamble for each of his 15 segments is, it says, whenever he travels, he looks for Chinese restaurants. And then the punchline that I really love and like, and which is sort of like why I was involved with this, inside every restaurant I will discover a personal story, a unique story of courage, survival, and hope. And that's Shuk Kwan, who's the documentarian of this. And so, okay, hold it right there, and I'm going to invite Bill Tong, who many of you know, and his family had a restaurant in Chicago, and I'm going to let you tell about that, because it was important to me to get people like Bill who were willing to share their experiences, because I never worked in a Chinese restaurant, so I don't have any first-hand experience. So fortunately, with people like Bill, I'll let you share your story.
This photo dates back to around late 1954. Tong's Tea Garden was the family restaurant that was founded by my late father, Jerry Tong. I refer to my father as Dad in Dr. Jung's book, and I neglected to write out his name, but his name is Jerry Ziyun Tong. And he and my grandfather, Tansung Tong, founded the restaurant, Tong's Tea Garden. It was actually the second restaurant in our immediate family. It's on Chicago's north side. It's down the block from Northeastern Illinois University. At the time this was built, the university didn't even exist. My family was actually in the neighborhood. This holds because it keeps tripping on me. It was actually in the neighborhood since 1947 or so. There was a predecessor restaurant called the Lee. The reason it was called the Lee was because it was owned by Mr. Lee. My grandfather had been drafted into the U.S. Army in World War II, and it changed the course of our family's history. He was the second generation Chinese immigrant. My great-grandfather worked in a Chinese restaurant when Chinatown was based at Clark and Van Buren at the South Loop, south of downtown. And he worked there for 18 years. In 1924, he made plans to return to China for good. And my grandfather came over and spent just about a month with him in Chicago. And then my great-grandfather went back to China. My grandfather worked in various Chinese restaurants, mostly as a waiter, but he did learn how to cook, and he was very interested in learning how to cook American food. And it was a skill that he applied later. So he managed to find work even during the depth of the Depression. Grandpa took the North Shore. It was an interurban train that ran from Chicago to Milwaukee, Wisconsin. On the weekends in 1930, he would work a job at a restaurant in Milwaukee and then commute back to Chinatown. And he had one day off, usually Monday. Chinese restaurants close on Monday. And he educated himself by riding every elevated line in Chicago. So he knew his way around. He knew how to read and speak English, which gave him quite an advantage. And then he got drafted, okay? And that, like I said, changed the course of history, family history, because he was able to become a citizen. And then he planned to bring his family over, okay? So what he did was he bought a takeout on the north side. That was the Lee. It was just down the street from where Tong's Tea Garden was built. And he bought it from Mr. Lee, and he staffed it just with family members. My grandma came over, my aunt, and my father staffed the restaurant. And in the early years, there were also nephews and nieces of my grandfather, because his older brother in Chicago had like 6 kids. So my Uncle Harry and Aunt Clara also worked at the Lee. After 7 years, opening 363 days per year, only 2 days off, Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Yeah.
My father said he couldn't believe how hard he was working in Chicago. He came here not knowing any English, couldn't read any signs, and he told me years later, he said, I was so depressed because I felt like I was blind because I couldn't read English. I felt like I was deaf because I couldn't understand English. And I was working every day. And they lived in Chinatown, and they commuted to the north side on the public transportation system. So in 1954, my grandfather hired an architect, bought a plot of land just down the block on the other side of the street. It was a vacant lot. There were only 2 buildings on the block at the time. And they built Tong's Tea Garden. So as you can see, Tong's Tea Garden originally opened as a takeout, and the living quarters were built upstairs. And then that eliminated the long commute. So it opened as a takeout, and the first year or so, business was kind of slow, and then it picked up, and then they had to hire extra staff. They would hire high school kids to, as order clerks. And for a time, Grandpa offered delivery. He told me the story. He said, there was a Ing's chop suey just half a mile away. And the owner of Ing's came up to him and said, I'm going to drive Tong's out of business because I'm going to offer delivery. So my grandfather then offered delivery, and within a year, Ing's was out of business. So he had the last laugh. So this is my grandfather, and that's me. I'm about 2 months old, or 3 months old. This was taken in March 1959. That's what the kitchen looked like in Tong's Tea Garden. Okay. And this is years later. This is around 1972, and that's my little sister Dolly sitting in the chair. She's in the audience now. And this was in 1970. Tong's Tea Garden remodeled, the major $30,000 remodeling project. We built a dining room. You see the tile floor and everything, and formica tables, and what used to be a large waiting room in the takeout was converted into a dining room. The doors there didn't exist before. There were green fiberglass panels that came out a little bit further, like where that station is, where it's holding the drinking glasses and stuff. None of that stuff was there. That dividing wall, they built an extra washroom next to the existing one. And next slide, please. Okay, let's see. That was, I think, some kind of quilt tapestry. That dates back to like the early mid-70s. But that used to be up there. I think my dad put that up there. I think he liked it a lot. This is a distant cousin of mine named Howard Lee. He worked as a waiter for us while he was going to college at U of I in Chicago. This is Nancy Ishihashi, who went to high school with me. The thing I remember about her is that she translated her name from Japanese. It means one chopstick. This is one of the rare pictures from that time where I got my dad in the picture. Over Nancy's right shoulder, you see, that's my dad, Jerry Tong. And there's a menu that's taped to the steam table there so that you could check on the prices and add up everything correctly. And this is a family picture. This is Grandma's birthday. She's about 75, 76 in this picture. Okay, you can tell I'm the guy in the middle. My cousin Steve in the audience. He's always been the tall one. He's to my right. And his younger brother Gilbert to my left. My late aunt Yolanda. And Sister Betty is on your left. And Dolly, and Grandma's in the middle, and Cousin Annette on the far right there. And when I met Dr. Jung initially through email, we had a number of email conversations, and in 2008 he emailed me and said he was making a visit to Chicago to see some old friends and colleagues of his at Northwestern. So I took the opportunity to meet him in person, and I was very happy to meet him. I was amazed at how tall he was. So I had an idea. We were trying to figure out a place where we could have dinner, and I said, well, why don't we eat at the restaurant, and then you get a chance to meet my dad. So we had dinner together, and then I snapped this picture with my dad.